Hello and welcome to my new build, the building of the Keil Kraft Ladybird. I'm about to start pinning down the wing, main spar and trailing edge, but before I do so, a word about how I'm going to tackle this. I did say in the first video that I intended reading the instructions for a change, and having done so I've decided to ignore them. What I've decided to do is build the wings first, and they suggest building the fuselage first because you use it to actually set up the tongue that holds the wings in position. They are inserted into the box structure in the fuselage to set the angles, and then as a completed unit this is then glued onto the wing. Well, because I want to leave the fuselage to last, I can't do it that way. And to get round that, what I've actually done is I've produced a couple of dihedral jigs to set the root rib at the correct angle. I'll glue these three ribs together and then add them on, but I can ensure that by doing that and using these dihedral jigs, the angle is set at 7 degrees. The roll will be well. So, slight departure. What am I going to do? I hope you can see there's a little bit of a glare, unfortunately, because of the cling film being used to protect the plan. So I've already glued together the wing tip. That needs to be pinned down. I'll do that now. In position. Happy with that. Couple of pins in here, one near the top and one near the bottom. Now I've also pre-notched out the trailing edge at the position of each rib. I'm going to pin that down, and that'll give me something to work on as I'm placing the ribs in. I've also, there's an angle had to be produced at the end here to match the root rib. So if I put that in position, there's no gluing yet in terms of these parts, and that's because I intend using CA glue, and the capillary reaction of the thin CA will actually wick in to the joints and give me an instant bond. Now the lower rib, the lower spar, it calls for this to be packed up with some 16th packing. So I'm going to do that. I wasn't sure if I was going to at first. Line it up with the root rib. There we go. I'm just going to put one in here. I'm just going to test it with one of the ribs to see if it lines up, because sometimes the plans don't line up, and that's just inaccuracy that builds up over years of copying and transcribing. No, that's going to work fine. So I'll pin one in here. Then I'll try a rib that's close to that position to make sure it lines up okay. Yeah, that's going to be great. That's going to work out. So, all that remains to do now, put another little bit of packing there, is to actually start pinning the ribs down and in position. What I will do is I'll glue trailing edge of the end tip. I'll glue this spar to the end tip. And just a word about what I'm doing here. I'm using one of these applicators. It's a standard bottle of 20 gram bottle of thin CA, and I'm using one of these pipette adapters that you just put onto the end. I've just bought 100 of these for just over £5. The last stages, you just keep nipping them as they dry up inside, but it makes application of CA glue far more accurate when you're doing so. So I'm going to pause it there, and we're going to run this as a time lapse, because you don't really want to watch me gluing one ribbon at a time. We'll see that, and then we'll see what the next stage is going to be. So there you have it. That's the trailing edge, the end tip, the lower spar, and the first group of ribs glued in place. Now this then comes to this part, and I seem to be missing a rib. We'll find that. So these need to be set at the correct angle. It's fairly straightforward actually, because if you look here, the angle's set by the position of the slots and the ribs. But I do want to ensure that this is at the correct angle to mate up to the fuselage when it's built. So I'm going to put this on the board, and using the dihedral templates, I'm going to mark up and make sure that the correct angle. It's all about this first one actually, isn't it? So if I push these up here, that's the correct angle, and holding it in position, I'm going to run some CA along this plywood tongue. Once that's set, things will stop wobbling and wobbling about. I'll flick it over in a second once that's held. Happy with that. Just take these off temporarily. I did have to put a chamfer onto the slot so that it could be angled over. Yeah, I'm happy with that. It's not much actually. Run up some CA around here. It's quite an old school method for attaching wings. I actually used it on a much bigger model, on the Falcon that I've just built. It has a plywood tongue system, a little bit more elaborate than this, but a tongue system that slides into a box, and this is the same idea. Now this one, put it in position, make sure it's in the right position here, and that one just glues over the top, and then the whole knot sits down. Well, actually what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put this in place . Needs to be a little bit further up, I think. That's it. And that one goes like that. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I think I'm going to use white glue to hold these down. Yeah, I think I'll use white glue to hold those down. I'll pause it there while I get that sorted out and then I'll get back to you. Okay, issue sorted with this. Need a little bit of wood removing from the underside of this plate so it could sit down on the spar. That was the issue. It's all glued in place now. Time to add the leading edge on. I always tend to leave this till last. It asks you to actually pin it down before you put the ribs in. How you would do that is beyond me, as all the ribs have a bird mouth end to them. So, simple matter, line up, make sure they're in contact with the ribs, and then this modern adhesive, see, it's a Wonder Glue obviously, comes into its own, holding them in place as we go along. Tack there. And it just runs into all the gaps. It's holding now. Nearly there. It will, I think, need a piece putting in here to join it to the tip. I'm not convinced how it's shown on the plan. But there you go. That's the basic wing, one wing panel done. Now to add the upper spar, I can take this out. And as I do so, I'm actually going to pin, just nip the edge of this leading edge, because otherwise there's nothing to hold this down. Just hold it in position. Top spar to add. It should, with a bit of luck, go in. Yep. Now, the way this is set up, from these ribs onwards, there's going to be some sheeting all the way along the front. These are sheeted all the way. These only to the main spar, so the rib stands up slightly on the rear side of the spar. There you go. Some of this Wonder Glue. Can't emphasise enough how useful this applicator end is. Well worth the small amount of money. They last a long time. Obviously, as they clog up, you can just keep cutting the tip off, but you just replace them, take them off and throw them away. That's in place now. That needs bending down. It seems an odd way to do this. I'm going to take a little piece out of this lower spar so that can go down. I might have to actually put a little block in there to take it to the end. I think I will. The wood was short for the lower spar, but I'll glue that together as it is now, like that, and then I'll just put a piece of scrap on the end. That's not taking long at all, is it? We're getting there, as they say. We're getting there. Whoops. That glue needs a little bit of encouragement. So, I'll pause it there. I'll get the sheeting prepped to do the leading edge, and then we'll come back and see how it is. As you can see, I've now removed the wing from the plan, and I'm going to actually add the sheeting to the leading edge of the wing. It's on the upper spar only. And to do so, I'm going to take advantage of the wicking ability of the super glue. I'm going to tack it at the back first. Tack only. Once that's down, I'm going to make sure that it's lined up on all the other surface. I'm going to apply it from the inside, and I'm feeling that it's pushing up against the step in the rib. This stage I'm only gluing the rear spar. There's no attempt to do anything else at the moment. Just pushing it up nicely to the rear spar. Or the rear edge lip rather. If the wood was thicker, 16 say, it might be worth dampening the upper surface or even steaming it, which is what I did when I was building the Falcon. And I'm pulling it round to the tip, applying super glue here now. Holding this just for a second because it will resist that to a certain extent. That's it glued. I'm just going to wet that. A little bit. Add a little bit of glue there. And hold it as it's forcing round. It's taken nicely. That less so. I'm going to wet that a bit more, but I'll do that in a second. Now I'm going to the curved part of the ribs, the upper surface of the rib, and I'm pulling it round, making sure it's in good contact. This would have been very difficult with white glue. It would have involved lots of pinning and no guarantee that it would stay on the rib. So see, it really does come into its own like this. And the capillary reaction just wicks in this very thin CA into the rib joint, or the joint between the rib and the sheeting. I'm going to wet that side there because it's going to, I know it's going to resist to a certain extent. Quite happy with that. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to wet all this leading edge so that I can pull it round and actually glue it to the leading edge. I'll just pause while I steam that. I think I'll steam it actually. Here we have it. This is the leading edge, which is now being sheeted in 132 balsa, and I'm actually quite surprised at the amount of strength that's been imparted by that very thin wood being applied. A little bit of steam around this part in particular, because it's a little bit of a compound curve, managed to get that wood round, but because it's soft quality, it worked quite well. You just have to be careful, and it's well bonded. It's going nowhere. That I have to sheet this area, and because it uses a hook system to actually hold these plywood tongues onto the fuselage, it actually suggests an observation window there, which is quite quirky, but I'll go with it because that's part of the design. So that's a little bit to do, and I believe it's sheeted on the underside as well for these two, between these two ribs. Then I'll call this done. Obviously it needs cleaning up, and then I'll repeat for the other side. Well, there you have it, one completed wing for the Ladybird. Quite enjoyed doing that. Nice morning's work. It needs cleaning up, of course. There's the observation window to make sure that the wings are hooked on correctly. I've enjoyed making that. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe and enjoy the rest of the journey with me. And if you don't mind, give it a thumbs up, and that helps share via the algorithm to many other modelers. Bye for now.